Welcome to HVAC Talk with Huff. You got it. I'm Huff. Today I'd like to start a more like a series about company culture. And it's a difficult thing to talk about sometimes, right? Everybody wants to think that their company has the best culture, as far as at least if you're an owner or you're in management. It seems like a lot of times employees like to rag on management and the culture, and so there seems like sometimes a clash between those who do the field work and those who do the managing part. And there's always going to be a little bit of that. And that's not what I'm talking about. I want to get deeper into what is the true company culture and how does it affect the work. A lot of times when we're looking at quality issues and we start talking about people not doing quality work, we want to instantly go to the installers. They're rushing, they're doing this, they're doing that, they don't know what they're doing, they don't read instructions. We have all these things that we like to, to pass judgment on. But we forget that, I look at install and service companies, more as a machine. There's a lot of moving parts. And a lot of times we forget that everybody plays a role and everybody affects quality. Even the folks in the office, well, they're not the ones out there doing the installing. I do understand that. But getting people the right information, giving them the right amount of time, all these different things go into the work that gets done in the field. And everybody is a player. And everybody needs to own their piece. And so one of the things I learned in the OEM world, and I was just sharing on a podcast not too long ago, that in the OEM world, especially when there is a piece of equipment that's experiencing some kind of failure, multiple failures in the field, they'll do what's called a root cause analysis. And that's not just looking at the part that's failed, but why it's failed. Now, sometimes you can say, well, that part is outsourced. We buy that part from company A over here. And so we're going to quit buying from company A and we're going to get that's a similar part from company B. Well, that may be the issue, but what if the fact is that you really chose the wrong part for that job? What about that, right? So a root cause analysis doesn't just look at the specific thing that's failed. It looked at why it's failed all the way back to the choice of why that part was chosen and why that brand was chosen and why that particular model of part was chosen. And so a root cause has to get all the way back to the root, because the only way you're going to really correct the issue and make sure it doesn't occur again later in another design is to get all the way back to the very root cause. And I think that when we look at our companies as a whole, when we have issues on jobs, we need to go back and look at the complete root cause. What happened here? And so, you may find that there's a lot of other things that maybe contributed to that install not being done correctly, not just the installer. And so we want to kind of unpack some of those parts and pieces. And so in company culture, the one thing I want to just ask about today is this, is what does your company value most? Quickness or quality? Now, let's be honest about quickness. There are a lot of times that we can up our efficiency as technicians and installers, right? And we can do the job, still do it right, and I mean to the T, do it right, and still do it quicker if we manage our time better. So when I'm talking about quickness, I'm not talking about just good time management skills as a technician. I've worked with people that it seems like by the time we got that job done, they had every tool they owned out of the van and on the job, spread out all over, the half acre there. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, okay. And then when they had downtime, such as, they got the system on vacuum now, right? They got the vacuum pump running, and now it's just a matter of letting it do its thing. And instead of starting to clean up tools, instead of getting things back to the vehicle, they just sit around watching this, micron gauge and just waiting for it to hit 500 so they can then valve it off and do a decay test, right? So that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, that's efficiency. That's a topic for another time. When I'm talking about quickness or quality, what happens if you go to a job and the job was more than they had booked it for, right? So you get there and they had maybe booked you for 2 hours. And you get there and there's a whole mess and there's things that the previous technician didn't see, and now you realize it's going to take longer, right? When you call back to the office, what happens, right? Is just hurry up and get it done because you got more calls? Do they maybe try to get someone else to take another call off your plate? I mean, what happens in that process, and are you allowed to do the job correctly? Are you giving your technician the time to do it correctly, or rush through and just do the best you can but get out of there? What happens in these kind of times, right? Do you get pressed for time because they booked you for another job and this job's taking a little longer because there was unforeseen things, right? And then what happens when that occurs? You see, it's these kind of things that sometimes we sacrifice quality for quickness because we've already booked other things. Now, that's me kind of picking on the office a little bit, but on the flip side of that, sometimes it's the technician or the installer has something they want to do that evening. And so, they'd want to get it knocked out so they can get home because they got things that they want to do instead of doing the job correctly. And so sometimes, this wanting to be quick sometimes hits on all fronts, whether it's the dispatcher in the office, whether it's the service manager, the person who estimated that job and put a certain amount of time in. All these different people play a part, including the installers and the technicians. And sometimes, we look at quickness as the objective instead of quality. And the problem is that sometimes we're so short-sighted in that view that we're just looking at right now, what's going on right now, that we forget that, that this may come back around later on and it's going to take more time from another day. So, a lot of times what we find is that, in the effort to be quick because there's more stuff to be done and more jobs and other people are waiting, or we booked extra jobs that day, we find that at the end of the day, the job got rushed, and it's always the little things. It's always that last 5% that gets missed and causes callbacks, which really detracts from quality work. When you think about quality work, it's not just that the work looks neat. Hey, listen, I like the work to look neat. I really do. I think that I'd love to go in and see a job where people have paid attention and even the S-slips and drives line up just right. Somebody's really taking the time to make sure everything looks great. I absolutely love that. But if I had to choose between a job that's neat, that's actually where the equipment's not performing exactly the way it's supposed to, or a job that maybe looks a little rushed, but is actually correct, started correctly, commissioned correctly, sized correctly, all that things, and it operates as it should, which would you rather have? A system operating efficiently to the peak of its efficiency, or a system that looks really, really neat, but a little low on charge, airflow wasn't checked, things like that, right? So I've been on a job site many, many times, or I've been asked to go to job sites many times, and we would always ask for the startup sheets first. Okay, well, give me your startup sheet so I can see what this piece of equipment was running like when you commissioned it and see what's going on now. That way, I can, kind of check out what's going on. And plus, we want to make sure that these things were checked first, right? Don't want to go out on a job just because somebody didn't set the airflow, right? So we want to see these startup sheets. And I can't tell you how many times I've been told by both the office and the installer or technician that they didn't have time to do all that. We ain't got time to fill all that out. So what are they saying? To me, they're saying that they didn't have time to actually perform their work correctly. They didn't check it or measure it correctly to make sure that it was running the way it was supposed to. They didn't check the airflow. They didn't set it. They didn't record that information, right? Because you can't be telling me that you didn't have time to fill out the sheet. Because honestly, what does that add? When I'm checking airflow and I get done and I know that it's right, how much more time does it take to record to write a few numbers on a sheet of paper? All right. Or, and I mean, I can fill out the name and address later next morning if I want to, but I can record all the readings, because if I take the readings and I have them there, I mean, heck, we have cell phones these days that can snap pictures and take better videos than the video cameras we used to use in the 80s when I was in high school. Right. And so we've got little computers in our pockets with high def cameras. You tell me you couldn't snap a picture of your gauges and your thermometer readings, you couldn't snap a picture of these things. It really doesn't hold water. And so when someone says they didn't have time to record that information, it's more telling me that they probably didn't do the work. They didn't really check it that thoroughly, because the extra few seconds it takes to actually record the data or snap a picture of it for later, doesn't really check out, does it? And so I've been told by both the technician in the field, the installer, and I've been told by the office that they just didn't have time to do that. They had other calls. But yet now they're asking us to go back out to the job with them because there's a problem. And, what's the chances that we go out there and the problem was something that, had they gone through the proper steps, had they gone through all the proper commissioning steps and measurements, and done that likely we wouldn't be going back out again. And so there's a guy I work with. I won't quote his name because he still does tech support. So I would not want to dime him out. But he says this: either plan to do it right or plan to do it again. And I always used to add after that, until it's right, because we get calls where people's been out there 3 and 4 times, and they would want us then to come out. But when we asked for that information, we didn't have time to do that. Okay, but you've been to the job 2 or 3 more times after that, and you didn't have time. I mean, at what point in that callback list, right? And so, again, quickness or quality, right? Because the problem is, if we don't do quality work and we try to sacrifice quality for quickness, we forget that we're going to pay for that time on the back end, right? Yeah, today you may have been quick and got out of there and got to the next job. But when you got to go back again to correct something that was probably install related, or even again and again and still not have it right, where does that time come from? Right now, and we'll have a separate conversation about what does a callback really cost you, right? We'll do that at a different time. But as far as time is concerned, right, when we sacrifice quality for quickness, we will eventually pay for it. And so we can bite the bullet today and do it right, and maybe have to put in a few extra minutes that day, or somebody may have to rearrange something on the schedule or whatever, but we did it right. And so we don't have to worry about going back later, right? And so this is a culture thing. And the culture, really kind of starts at the top, and it runs through the management into the field. Now, it doesn't mean that, listen, there are sometimes that are just people that you hire that come in, into your company and from the field and just have bad attitudes. And honestly, I'd rather find someone that doesn't have quite as much experience but has a great attitude than I was somebody that's got a lot of experience and bad attitude, because one person with a bad attitude could just really hurt the company. You don't want that. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. So we have to kind of look at these things and really ask ourselves, and really take our time in the hiring process to make sure that we're getting the right people that has the right attitude for the company that we're building. And so too often, we find people that they talk a great game, but they don't really produce. But on the other side of that, sometimes we have people that are very capable of doing great things and doing great work, and know how to do it right, but we press them very hard. We rush them through the job, and to the point where after a while, when you're being rushed, after a while, you kind of just you just give yourself over to it, and you just, all right, well, if that's the way it's going to be, then I'm just going to not as worry about his need of work and his quality of work and making sure that I dot every I, cross every T. Instead, I'm just going to rush through this because that's what they're really wanting from me, right? And so we have to look at our culture and ask ourselves, what is the most important thing? I was helping a company out in Northern Virginia, and they told me this: we're not worried about being the biggest, but we do want to be the best. And I said, well, I've heard those kind of things before, but what does that mean to you? That you want to be the best? Are you willing to get the best tools? Are you willing to spend the time for the folks to get the right training? And are you even are you even prepared that if you got someone who's not measuring up and doesn't want to, and doesn't want to be a part of this culture that you're trying to build, are you willing to part ways with them in an effort to get the right people on the bus? And the answer was yes. They were willing to do that, and that's a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to do, but If we really want to be the best, then we've got to really set our mind to it. And the culture that we breed in our company is what's going to make that. Because I can promise you that people want to be a part of something great. Everybody does. Everybody wants to be a part of something great. At least most people in their hearts want to. They want to do the right thing, and they want to be the best that they can be, and be a part of something that's more than just money. Money is important. Yes, we need to pay our people well and do the best we can there. Um, but I'll be honest with you, I've worked with some folks and the money was great and it was just still not satisfying. It wasn't enjoyable. Nobody seemed to like working with one another, and that's just a tough way to. It just makes you not want to go in every day. And I've worked for other places where you didn't make as much, but everybody was on board. We were a team. We actually enjoyed what we did. We enjoyed work, made it a little fun. And we're all about doing it right and being the best. And that was an enjoyable culture. And so I can tell you that in today's society, a lot of times we rag on young folks, the new generation. But I'm gonna tell you, I have ran into some even here lately in some of the training I've been doing that there are some group of young folks out here that really do want to learn and be good at something, and feel at the end of the day that they made a difference. They are out there. All we ever hear is the bad stuff on the news, and we always see the people that are raising, their voice the loudest in ways that are just, inappropriate and just, really technically not newsworthy, but yet they end up on the news, right? Um, but there are a lot of good folks out there that would really love to learn. They would love to feel at the end of the day they accomplished something. And I think that a lot of the young people are figuring out that the trades is a very respectable thing, and that we make the world go around. Um, that those people who work with their hands who accomplish something, the HVAC is a very good trade. It pays well. It's hard work. But at the end of the day, you are able to accomplish something. You fix something. You installed something, and there's something that it makes us feel good at the end of the day when we've done those things, right? So let's let's look at our culture, because the one thing that will attract the younger folks into the trade is not only a place where they can learn, but it's a place where it's safe to learn, right? Where they're going to make mistakes along the way, and we have to help them through that. Um, and they are looking for a place that feels more like home, and that it's a place where people accept it. When you see all these things going on in the world today, everybody wants acceptance, right? And so, young folks looking to get in the trade are looking for a place that feels more like a family, right? And that is also something you have to weave into your culture. We do quality work, we take care of one another, we back one another up, and this is a safe place to be. In that mistakes are going to happen, but we're going to work through it. We're going to make sure you learn from it. And as long as you have an attitude that if you make a mistake, that you don't have the intent of ever making it again, because you want to learn from that mistake, and not do that again, because you want to be among the people who are known for doing it the best. And that will attract young talent. And when I say young talent, they may not be HVAC talent, but they may be talent in the fact that they're good with their hands, and they're good with their minds, and they're able to learn. And as this equipment gets more complex and computers play a bigger part, you want this younger generation. You want them involved, plugged in. I was helping some guys the other day with Measure Quick. We got iPads and iPhones out, and I'm gonna tell you, I had this one young fella, and man, he was all over. He knew exactly where to go. He had only seen me do it once or twice, and bam, bam, bam. Then I had some of the other guys that really kind of struggle with that because they struggle with technology. And the thing is, the company that they're involved in, that they're using Measure Quick now, and so it's they have to get on board, and they've companies outfit them with all Bluetooth tools. I mean, they want to do it right, and so these younger folks are actually helping the older ones learn this process, and it was kind of really cool to see. And so, breeding a company culture where quality is first and foremost, and that instead of pushing for quickness, help teach efficiency, and the quickness will be there where they won't be wasting time, right? So we not only teach them how to use the tools and what to do with the tools, but we also teach them how to be efficient, right? If you teach efficiency and quality, quickness will be a part of that. And occasionally you're going to get stuck on a job. It is what it is, right? Allow people the time to get it right so you don't have to keep going back, because we'll have another day where we talk about the true cost of callbacks. We'll see you on the next round, and be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Always do safe work and get home to your families, because families are important. We'll see you on the next one.